Today we're making eggs Benedict. So what we're going to need is an English muffin, eggs, whole eggs that we're going to poach, Canadian bacon, and then hollandaise sauce. And to make the hollandaise sauce, what we'll need are egg yolks, melted butter. We just melted butter in the microwave, a little bit of lemon juice, and a tablespoon of cold water. Now, this isn't really difficult, but it does take a little bit of planning so that it all comes together at the end. So what we're going to do is toast the English muffin and then keep that warm in the oven. The Canadian bacon is going to go into a little frying pan, and we're going to keep that warm in some butter. And incidentally, if you don't have Canadian bacon, you can use ham. That'll work just as well. The nice thing about Canadian bacon is that it's round and it fits nicely on the English muffin. Then the eggs, we're going to poach those ahead of time and take them out, put them in some ice water, and then at the last minute we'll put them back in warm water so we don't have to worry about those at the end. And then we can proceed to make the hollandaise sauce. The recipe that follows is for a full portion of hollandaise sauce. We're only going to do a half of a recipe because we're only going to make 2 eggs Benedict, and so that's all we're going to need. So let's go over to the stove and get started. Okay, so I've toasted the English muffins. I'm going to put these in the oven to keep them warm. And we have the Canadian bacon back here warming in a little bit of butter. So the rest of the setup basically is I've got a pan here that I've put in about a ½ inch of water. And this is going to act as a double boiler. And I've got my eggs here, and you can see that the pan is going to sit right down like this. You want to make sure that the bowl and the water are fitted such that the pan with the eggs in it doesn't actually touch the water. And we want this to be at just a very slow simmer. And then we've got another pan over here that we're going to do our eggs in. And again, you want this just at a slow simmer. And what I'm going to do is add just about a ½ teaspoon of vinegar to the water, and that'll help the eggs keep their shape. And once the water comes to a simmer, we're ready to put the poached eggs in. And we don't want this boiling really hard, but just a bit of a simmer, and carefully pour the eggs in. And then give them just a little bit of a stir. And I'm going to start a timer, and we're going to do these for just 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And then I've also set up here an ice bath, just water with ice cubes. And I also have another bowl of cold water, which we're going to use once we start making the hollandaise sauce. So again, we're going to let the eggs go for 3.5 minutes. Then we're going to put them in the ice bath. Now, let's keep an eye on the water. So like I say, it's just at a low simmer. And the nice thing about doing eggs this way is you can do them ahead of time. And you can actually do them the day before if you want. Take them out, put them in the ice bath, and then drain them and put them in the refrigerator. And then the next day, just drop them in, again, hot water for about 30 seconds, and they're ready to go. The other thing I didn't mention is that once you've mastered eggs Benedict, eggs Florentine are basically the same thing, except all that you do is substitute steamed spinach for the Canadian bacon, and then you've got eggs Florentine. Once you've mastered the hollandaise sauce, that's great over other vegetables. It goes over asparagus really nicely. And if you can make hollandaise sauce, then sauce béarnaise is basically the same thing with just some shallots and other spices. So if you can do all of this, you're a long way toward mastering several skills. Okay, so the eggs now have been in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So I'm just going to take these out and drop them in my ice water bath here. And that'll stop the cooking. And I'll still keep the water over here simmering. And now it's time to start the hollandaise. For that, I'm going to add that tablespoon of cold water to my egg yolks, and I'm going to beat these until they get thick. Take about a minute. Okay, so now they've thickened a little bit, and what we're going to do now is put this over this double boiler thing that we've set up. And once you do this, you want to continue to stir. The whole key to hollandaise sauce is getting the eggs cooked to just the right consistency. If they're not cooked enough, they're not going to incorporate the butter. And if they go too long, you're going to end up with scrambled eggs, and the whole sauce is a waste. And if you keep another bowl of cold water here, if things start going too fast, you can plunge the bottom of the pan into the cold water and slow things down. And you don't want to rush this. Again, I want to keep the water, you don't want it underneath, you don't want it boiling, but you just want little tiny bubbles coming up. And this is going to take a minute or two. And just never stop stirring and keep a very close eye on it. And what we're looking for is when this starts to thicken. And when you can move the whisk through it and start forming little ribbons, you know you're about ready. And before that happens, if you actually look around the top of the pan here, you can see that the egg's beginning to thicken just a little bit. Again, you want to keep beating vigorously. If you ever think it's getting too hot, you can take it off the pan. You can just see around the edges here, you can see it's beginning to thicken just a little bit, but I'm still not seeing any ribbons. I'm doing this in real time because I want you to get an idea as to how long it actually takes to do this. So then the other trick to hollandaise sauce is not only making sure the eggs are cooked properly, but when you add the butter, you want to do it very, very slowly to start with, a drop at a time. You see how this is beginning to come together here? It's almost forming. Again, I don't want to end up with scrambled eggs. If you do, you just need to stir all over again. But if you do this a few times, you get a little practice. Again, don't rush it. And you can see on the bottom there, I'm almost making ribbons. Yeah, see how it's... Okay, so I'm going to take that off now and put it in the cold water just to cool it down for a minute to make sure there you can see the consistency. It's almost a custard. And I'm actually going to take that off the heat for a minute and put it on a towel so it doesn't slip around. And now I'm going to start to add the butter, like I say, very slowly, just a drop at a time if you can. Now, one egg yolk will hold, in theory, a little over 3 ounces of butter. We used 2 egg yolks, so if everything went right, you could actually add about 6 ounces of butter. But just to be safe, I've cut that back to 4 ounces for 2 eggs, because everything doesn't always go just right. Okay, so this is going to be plenty for 2 egg Benedicts, and you can see that I've used most of the butter. There's a lot of milk solids in the bottom that I don't want to use. And then I'm just going to give that a squeeze of lemon at the end to get that seed out. And this is pretty thick, maybe a little thicker than you want. And if it's too thick, you can just add a little bit of cold water to it to thin it down, or a little more lemon juice. And then you can hold this if you keep it near a heat source, or what I usually do. I'm going to bring this. This is really hot water now, but if you lower this until the water is just tepid, and what tepid means is basically about 105 degrees. You want it to feel warm when you put your hand in it, but you don't want it to scald. I'm going to add just a little bit. Yeah, that feels pretty much just like a warm bath. And I'm just going to put it up there on one side. So now, the last thing we need to do is reheat our eggs. And again, we're going to do these now bring the water back up to a boil. And we're going to do the eggs now for about 30 seconds, just enough to reheat them. I'm going to set a timer for 30 seconds. Okay, and that's been 30 seconds. So I'm going to take these out and just drain them on a paper towel. And now we're ready to assemble. I'm going to take the English muffins out of the oven. And this Canadian bacon is very thin, so I decided to use 2 slices for each of the eggs Benedict. Oops. That one's not very pretty that way, so I'm going to try to cut that off. And then we'll just spoon the hollandaise sauce. And there you have it.